Hello, friends. Welcome to the 9016. My guest today is an extremely talented musician who I've grown to know very well. I first met him a few years back and got to watch him grow in music through winning the local Battle of the Bands to creating his own record label, Garbage Records. He goes by his stage name Jack Berry and has toured all over New Zealand and parts of Australia. He has a wealth of insight to share with us all. Please welcome my humble friend, Damin McCabe.
Home audio entertainment.
9016 Radio.
The show for artists of all kinds.
Sit down and relax. Enjoy the music.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Your turn.
Cheers, fellas. Thank you for being here, Damin. Appreciate
problem.
you, Liam, as well.
Cheers.
Are you still smoking, Damin?
Yes, I am still.
You are?
Yeah.
Are you back to smoking?
I'm back to smoking.
Yeah. But you took a wee break there for a minute.
I did. It was
You
about
love how it creeps back in, eh?
Yeah. It's kind of like I don't really know how it started again.
Yeah.
But
But it's so easy too. You can be at a
Yeah.
party, someone can just be having one next to you, and you
Yeah.
go, it'd be nice to have one of those again.
they
The
pair
vicious
quite
cycle.
perfectly with drinking.
Yeah.
For
So
me.
easy to.
Not saying that I'm out drinking a lot, but when I've got a gig or something,
I was going to say you'll be at gigs quite a bit, so there'll be a
Yeah.
bit of that around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
a beer and a cigarette, I suppose,
Yeah,
is
for
the way
sure.
to go.
Yeah.
But I was vaping, and I don't know, that kind of feels the unknown with vaping has led me to think about it even more and be like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening to my lungs with
Yeah.
these
Well,
clouds.
the thing with vaping is, sorry, can you rip into that?
Yeah.
That's why I was passing it to you. Yeah, the thing with vaping is it seems like it's kind of taking the opposite direction, or at least it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, because
Yeah.
someone was telling me the other day, like the levels of nicotine that you can get in vape juice way exceeds what you'd have
Yeah.
in just a normal cigarette. So
Yeah.
it's like, when does this become like, it's literally anti of what it is supposed to be anti, seems like.
Yeah.
If you're smoking or using a vape rather to quit smoking, if it's the same level as a cigarette, it makes sense, or you slowly dial it down, but
Yeah.
people just rip in like 40
Yeah.
nicotine, like, yeah, if I go for it.
Yeah, it's the salts, I think, that have like a higher nicotine content, and
In the way they make the liquid.
yeah, it's like a salt form, or I don't know what that. Maybe that is in the liquid. I'm not quite sure.
I have
But
no idea how it gets
There's
made.
levels to it, and the salt stuff can get to a way higher level of.
How do you
head
even,
rush.
where does nicotine come from? Like, if you're, obviously it's something that's naturally in
It's in the
tobacco.
tobacco, so in
Yeah.
the plant.
So how
maybe.
do you get that? I mean, my knowledge on the subject is very minimal, obviously, but how do you get the nicotine out of that to put into vape juice? Is it simple as just some extraction method?
Science?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I
looking,
get
I'm
that.
looking to you for this one.
I guess it'd just be the process of getting it at a high temperature, just vaporizing it essentially into a.
Don't inhale that, by the way. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I've seen them make vape juices, but not specifically the nicotine to put in the vape juices. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Well,
interesting.
I made vape juice last year as the merch thing,
True.
Mm.
and it was like liquid formed nicotine that you'd put into
Right.
into a mix of flavoring, and I can't remember what it's called, but there's this other additive that goes in, and you just literally give it a shake.
Right. So it's still something specifically you have to.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just make the juice out of just like a
No,
sugary base.
no,
or
there's
something
like
that.
there was a website that could give you delivery ingredients.
Yeah, right. Send them
straight
straight
to
to
your
you.
house.
Yeah. Fuck. Might as well. I mean, that's a good.
And then it
small
was kind of
business
like I
side
don't
hustle.
know what the health ticks, and
It just doesn't sound good if you're
I feel you should be
inhaling,
providing
like,
people with more information.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just think if you're smoking or vaping rather with like 4 times the amount of nicotine than a cigarette is, like what is the point at that stage?
Can't
Why?
do those, eh?
Is it just for getting the rush? I don't understand.
Yeah,
it.
it's just getting the
that's true.
spin, getting the hip.
Yeah, and that could be pretty detrimental. Like if I've learned anything from smoking, it's that over time, if you've been smoking for a long time, you eventually start to lose the buzz from it. So I can imagine once you start losing that with vaping, you can just up it until you get that buzz, and then it starts to be super detrimental. Yeah, I don't.
I find like the thing that kind of put me off of vaping was if you have a cigar or a cigarette or like even some weed, I can still sing afterwards. But then for some reason vaping just hits me raw. I think it's because it gets deeper in towards the back of my throat, and
I've
it
never
just
felt the harshness of how a vape feels next to how like a cigarette and how it feels.
Yeah.
There's that real, like if you're not used to a certain level of nicotine in it, it's quite sharp. I could see why that would affect your vocals. So you must have just had a higher dose of.
I think it's a heat thing
vape.
too, in some
True,
ways. Yeah,
true, those
I don't-
coils.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like sustained use anyway was noticeable. For me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas like I feel like the long term effects of if you were smoking quite heavily and then trying to perform a lot or sing or whatever would probably just be a low in your tone.
Yeah.
And not really be able to hit like sustained notes after a while, I guess.
I'm sure it's I don't really know how to approach vocals anyway, so I don't know if smoking might have had an effect on the way it sounds, but
Yeah.
it's still I don't even really know how to approach anyway. So
Yeah. So you don't know what's actually
Nah.
really affecting you or not.
Not
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Are you smoking any weed of any form at the moment? Are you much of a weed smoker these days?
Not so heavily.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like it's a growing older thing too.
Yeah.
There's not enough time to be heavily doing it if you're trying to live a certain way as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know, it has its...
Can interrupt you a wee bit.
Yeah, and it distracts you in different ways and stuff. So I've just kind of like, I don't know, I'm trying to factor in a positive relationship with it. It's not like I don't like it or anything, but...
Excessive can be.
Or anything,
Unnecessary.
too much of anything, you know,
Yeah, for sure.
is
Yeah.
going to be bad.
Did you find you were using it in particular scenarios? Was it just like
It's a
home
social
for the
thing.
day Yeah.
And I think the culture around it's pretty big.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like
Have you used it much in a creative capacity?
quite a bit. But then I don't know if it actually if it's helping creativity or whatever,
Yeah.
because it's just like a whole state that you're in. But
Yeah.
I think one thing maybe was like just the ability to like. I thought of it as a bit of like a proofreading exercise for a wee bit, because it heightens the way that I was re-listening and thinking about things that I'd done, and kind of like it might bring out like a negative thought towards it. It
Right.
might be like, wow, I was really onto something here, but I feel like it was a deeper
Yeah.
kind of.
Feel like it's a bit of a seesaw. You can either
Oh,
go
yeah.
down pretty
Yeah.
easily with it, or you can find that it's actually
Yeah,
doing
and
the
it's
amount of
different
good.
for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, some people only get the down, and some people can just manage to be pretty much exactly the same as they always are.
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
Yeah, I found it not in a creative capacity, just in a general use capacity. I found that it did just get to the point where there was too many bad times,
Yeah.
or it was just doing too many things to
Yeah.
me that it was like, this is just not something that's for
Yeah.
me. I'm not going to use it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I may well do it again at some point, but it just never really worked out, so I
Yeah.
just gave it up.
Yeah.
How do you think things are going to look if this referendum goes through at the end of the year? Do you think that's going to be a beneficial thing? Would you see yourself potentially smoking more if it was like
I don't think
legally
it would
available?
change intake in any way. It would. I think the probably the most positive thing is knowing what you're smoking
Right.
and just having like
100%, I agree. Yeah.
more understanding around it, and because it's like super common weed. Like I think I know more people that do than don't,
Yeah.
and it's like
It's out there.
yeah, and there's different ways to get it into your body as well.
Yeah.
And it's like we only know Jay's smoking a bong or whatever, and there's like liquid THC or like all of this other stuff, and it's like having that would allow people to kind of know what's going to happen to them more, and it wouldn't be such a surprise if you're going to have a bad time or whatever. Yeah, so that and the business side of things, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if there's a growth in usage. Like, I think there'll be a lot more people starting to use it because it is regulated and because they do know.
Initially.
Yeah, they know what it is they're getting each time and where they can get it and get it safely, I suppose, as well.
Yeah.
Because since thinking about it that way, I've somewhat thought, not seriously considered that I would start smoking it or taking it in any way, but at least if it was legalized and in a platform where you could go into a store and look at what you're getting and how much it's going to affect you and what specifically it's for, it's kind of a bit more appealing that way, or at least I think I would try it a bit more, at least experimentally, because it's it's
And
regulated
like
in that
the
way.
stigma getting taken away from it, like the negative kind of side. I don't know, you wouldn't feel like such a whatever while you're under it and worrying about, because there's the whole, I don't know, there's thoughts and there's the whole thought thing when you're higher. Well, for me, maybe like thinking more about something, and it's like you could be out somewhere and you're like, these people can see, and it's like, but then if it's like normal and not a thing, then it's like, it's just like being in the octagon on Saturday, really drunk at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
But you're not. You're another form of that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, in this vicious
And when
cycle.
that gets ripped away from it, I feel like people will be a lot more comfortable in, you know, the state that they're in. Not saying that you need to be in any state as well.
Yeah.
But it's just like removing the kind of element of why and judgment, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
Could make people maybe not do it more, but have more positive experiences with it too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The thing that really put me off, not just weed, but like just buying drugs in general, or the concept of buying drugs, was that you really don't know what it is that you're getting. Like weed is weed, but it's also not.
No.
So like you could be buying a 50 of whatever, but you still don't know where has that come from, how many people has that gone through, is it laced with anything? There's no way to tell that. So it's a huge component that puts you off completely.
Yeah.
It's such a weird world, being able to go down the street and just go and buy weed from like a store that opens up. That'd be interesting.
It's like, if you think about it, if you walk into a liquor store now, it's not like you're going to be in a store with other people asking, you know, the attendees at the store, like, oh, what's this alcohol going to do to me? Or like, you know, how is this alcohol going to help out my arthritis, you know? But you might be next to a 6-year-old woman next time you go into a legalized head shop, and they might be like, oh, you know, I've got, my doctor actually suggested I come here because my arthritis is ridiculous.
Is that
He'd be
whole
like,
side of it?
Yeah, be like, oh, look at it this way. Whereas like, you know, you go into an alcohol store and they're just going like, I'm just going to get wasted, man. That's about it.
It's the same shit.
You're going to make some stupid decisions.
I think it would probably eventually turn into that, but I think initially, because like there are a lot of components in marijuana or cannabis that have sort of a diverse range of effects. It probably is initially sort of like, okay, well, it's like when you do your drug testing, you know, you're telling people what it is that this thing is going to do to them. So it's probably that similar capacity. There'll be people there that know how it's going to affect people and what a certain strain may do, or how it might suit someone medically, you know. Yeah.
There's actually a petition going to Parliament that's floating around at the moment about legalizing drug testing at festivals and
Is it
events.
not already?
Well, it's not illegal. It's weird. It's not illegal because it has support from the police structures in most cities and towns, but it's not like the process now is, you know, when we're doing it, we don't handle it. There's a lot of procedure in place basically to make sure that if anybody was to ever come in for some reason and question what was going on, you're liability free kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Whereas I think this petition is to be, because one of the biggest problems is that the service is there, but it's really hard to advertise it because the stigma is that people think that they're going to come into a tent and there's going to be 2 cops standing behind the person testing and they're going to be watched the whole time.
Yeah.
But the process isn't like that. But if you had it legalized and people could see, you know, publicly, like on Facebook or wherever this petition is floating around, that it's been made legal, then you'd be able to go out and at festivals and things like 121 and stuff like that. If those places could really do with the testing, but the fact is you can only hand around a poster to so many people that will actually listen, and then a bunch of other people will just ignore it. So
I'm still sort of trying to get my head around the whole drug testing thing, and I think you and I talked about this in one of the last ones, but it's just, you're pretty scared already. I think personally, if I had a pretty illegal drug on me and I wanted to go get that tested, I'd be pretty shaky going up to a tent trying to say, hey, I've got this, can you test it out for me?
Yeah.
It's sort of an interesting concept how that all works.
I think that's true, but that's not as big a reason for the testing not being as popular as you'd think. Like the biggest reason I'd say is that people are happy being ignorant about it a lot of the time, you know, because some people you tell them, you're like, oh yeah, like this isn't MDMA that you've got, it's codeine or it's anything else. And they will be like, oh, that sucks, but they'll still take it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
that's
that's the difference.
It all. You can't really stop anyone from doing anything further.
You can offer it because we do offer it, like, or we can destroy it if it's not what you thought it was, or you not want to take
Is there anything that you can say at its smallest capacity if it was something that could potentially be seriously damaging? Like if someone had come up to you with a substance that was like alarmingly high in a certain level or something, and they said, "Oh no, I'll still take it." Is there a point at which you can go?
Well, let's
Could
put
you
it
at
this
least
way.
tell them what it's going to do to them?
The testing when it like started up north, more heavily, like at Northern Base and festivals like that, and also just in the Auckland area, was the big boogeyman that you're taught to be looking for is fentanyl. So
Right.
if somebody was to come in and, you know, we tested it and it was fentanyl, that would probably be where somebody would be obligated to go to the police at that stage. You know, you'd never say that you'd dob anybody in, but if it was something that gnarly that would potentially kill anybody that was taking it, you'd probably feel morally obligated
Yeah.
to try to find the source of that. Whereas something else, there's a wide range of things that you'd be like, yeah, like I might not agree with taking it, but I'm not going to turn anybody in for taking it, you know, like DXM or 2CB or PCP or anything like that.
Yeah.
But if you had something where it's like, okay, this is actually going to damage, like even tiny fractal amounts of it would kill people, then you'd step in.
Yeah.
And that's when the police would
That's
become
kind of-
interested in what was happening.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. Like,
Yeah.
surely there's some sort of moral obligation at some point to really start saying someone to something. Yeah.
This is pretty serious kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't want to. You'd feel super guilty letting someone just walk away in that scenario. You know.
Mm.
Yeah. Have you been following Kanye West and this whole presidency thing?
Yeah, just like what's been popping up
Yeah.
through Facebook and
Something popped up for me today. Actually made me kind of laugh when I saw it, and we probably shouldn't be laughing about anything to do with Kanye in this whole scenario at the moment. But his presidential like list of signatures that makes his candidacy valid or something was all like forged signatures, and you could tell because it was all written in the same handwriting.
Oh,
So it
what?
looked like he'd just sort of gone through and wrote these people's names and just did a signature because all the like eyes had the like circle dot on top of them.
Right.
It was like someone has obviously written this whole list of
Come on,
signatures. And it's
Kanye.
been like, so I think there's some sort of halt, I guess, in the in his running. Yeah,
Well, but what he's doing is what Donald Trump meant to do. So for him, it's just a marketing ploy / an expansion of the Yeezy kind of brand. That's what Donald Trump was trying to do. He just got elected, and then he had to work with it on the fly, and that's what we've seen up
Yeah.
till now.
yeah,
But Kanye's not really going to be like, you can't actually vote for him in this election. Like, he won't be on the ballot
yeah.
anywhere.
That's sort of what I got from this
Yeah.
take. It was like,
Because it costs $400,000 to be on the ballot in one state, just a single state
Oh,
out of
wow.
51. So that's why they have donors and campaign
Yeah.
drives, etc., because there's fees and all this bureaucracy for them to actually even be on the ballot. That's why they only have two parties, and a lot of the time, because they're the two ones
not
that have
that
the
many.
most backing financially,
right.
and they've got the biggest kind of foundation. Whereas if Joe Bloggs was like, I'm going to run against these guys,
Yeah.
you'd have to have millions of dollars to even
was gonna
consider
say.
it.
sponsorship or something.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
yeah. Well, that's you've got to get people behind you, and then
Yeah.
people start giving money to your cause. That's
Yeah.
really the only logistical way. But even then, if it's that much per state, that's a shitload of money that you've got to get from somewhere.
That's why
Yeah.
celebrities became the kind of it thing in politics. Starting from like Ronald Reagan or whatever, but that was the whole.
They had the money.
The thing about it is, they have the money and they have the draw
way,
to be able to raise money. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seems
That's
like a bit of like a popularity contest too.
Yeah.
Like anyone can be president in a way. I know there's heaps of hurdles and stuff, but kind of like, especially more with being able to like market yourself the way you want to market yourself.
Yeah.
Like fully
Much more
transparently
accessible.
and whatever.
Yeah,
It just seems like this might be more of a reoccurring thing.
yeah, definitely. I think it's the start of a. It's funny, you laugh at these things until it actually comes to actually, you
Yeah.
know, for the last couple of years, people saying, yeah, Kanye for president.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh my God, Kanye for president.
Yeah. Well,
You
if the dude that you're watching that runs The Apprentice
Mm.
when you're a 10 or whatever
Yeah.
is actually the president,
It's a bit
then it
crazy.
kind of opens you to be able to be like,
Mm.
wow, it could go any way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know about Kanye being president. Like, I guess the idea of like, whoa, a musician.
Yeah, yeah. I
But,
think
like,
the reality of that
we
doesn't
need
match
we
the
need a
actual-
certain kind of person to fill those.
Yeah.
Well, we don't because we're not in that country. Of
course.
But I guess we hear about everything and see everything.
Yeah.
But I feel like it just needs to be someone that actually.
How have you interpreted his last couple of albums, or at least his music in the last few years?
I can't say I've like. I'm pretty bad at listening.
Are you much of a Kanye person?
I like Kanye and I like the idea of his place in hip hop and kind of the producer meets artist and pretty self-made in
Yeah.
a way and can do it all himself. But obviously,
The origin story of him is
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then being able to like get on the pop charts with a certain period within his discog, and it's just always kind of like hyper creative
Yeah.
with Kanye, and I guess that's like pretty exciting because it's maybe not so much now. What's next? Like that was the question always with his album. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
like where are we gonna? What's gonna happen?
Mm.
And like I guess with his recent ones, it still has kind of been like, whoa, I didn't expect him to go there.
Yeah, right.
But not. If I was going to be listening to Kanye now, it would be like 808s kind of
Some earlier stuff.
Just
yeah,
I don't know.
the
It
classic
might be
albums.
nostalgic or something.
Yeah.
He's been around long enough for me to get a wee bit like reminiscent on,
Yeah,
on a certain
absolutely.
kind of Kanye.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think the most recent one that he put out, I don't know if it's most recent, but with Travis, and it was really strange.
Yeah.
It was a bit more years. I don't know. I was like,
music video is quite
I get
distressing, but
Kanye.
it sounded good.
yeah, like all right,
quite
that's
enjoy it.
something like maybe more of like a electronic music kind of DJ feel to it
Yeah.
or something. And I was like, sweet.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna never just turn a blind eye to anything that anyone's putting out. You know, like listen to it, try and understand it, remove emotion unless it's really good or really bad. Just kind of try and be pretty neutral and understand it or whatever. And I did that with the Kanye song, and I was like, sweet.
Yeah.
And it's like, but making an album is a completely different thing in a way. So it's like this might be sick, but then it's like, can you tie 10 or however many songs all together in one idea like he has done really well in the past? Are you going to continue to be able to do that? Like I don't know, it must be hard for him because once you break the mainstream, you feel obliged to facilitate the mainstream and continue to kind of offer not what they want, but kind of something that's going to fit the mold of what they could want.
Sure.
And it's like, once he got to that point, it's a constant tug of war. Like, I want to be creatively free and do what I want to do. And that's why you get all these like negative articles about him, because he's a mainstream figure.
Yeah.
So there's like, everyone knows who Kanye is. And it's like, everyone's allowed an opinion on him. And it's like, it must be so hard to stick to your guns creatively and put out what you still want to put out, but at the same time know that people have expectation and they have opinion. Like,
Yeah. And he has
constantly.
a literal mental health disorder,
Yeah.
which doesn't help him in
And
that regard at
no.
all. He literally
And the
has-
transparency with that is super cool, though, I reckon, because that's the thing of
Yeah.
it's kind of this generation. It's
Yeah.
like, talk about your feelings
100%.
and like get it out and don't, I don't know.
Yeah, that speech with him when he starts crying and getting super emotional,
Yeah.
that's probably the first time in a while that you've actually seen a celebrity break down like that. And people making like comments about it in a humorous way initially, but there was a big swarm of people posting saying, this guy seriously has a problem,
Yeah.
we need to treat it as such, you know.
He kind of did that on his, well, I guess you can't know if it's fabricated or not, if it's the thought of scheme, but it kind of seems like it was a genuine emotional experience.
Yeah.
And like, it's just gets ripped apart and made to seem like it's joke
Yeah.
because of his status.
Yeah, it's
or
so
whatever.
easy to think that way. Like, I could imagine if you were watching that live, I don't know how I would actually react to that situation, because you're seeing someone who's in the limelight coming out of their comfort zone really, or really
Yeah.
being exposed, and you
Yeah.
sort of go, oh, Kanye's crying. Oh my God, Kanye's crying. You sort of go through this
Yeah.
whirlwind because you're not supposed to see
Yeah.
major A-list celebrities
Yeah.
in that sort of capacity. You know, it's quite odd.
And it's probably like, it's sick that now that we are. But I don't know. I just feel like I'm always kind of questioning the legitimacy of things.
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
That's where we are.
We get Netflix docos on things and they are like, wow, this was happening.
Yeah.
What the heck? So now I'm just kind of always like pretty blank face, kind of just taking it as it is.
Yep.
And I don't want to get like too into
Yeah.
certain things
Wanna
because
dive
it's,
deep into certain viewpoints and
like-
things too much, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think documentaries in a few years' time, like 5-10 years' time, are going to be, because of the amount of content or the amount of ways to film things or keep that touch base with things, you're going to have a lot more content to be able to create stories out of, because the amount of social media posts and
The
things.
only thing with documentaries though is they have this kind of they live in this kind of rare slot of media that people will take the words from a documentary as more truthful than what might come from a non-fictional story or a fictional story. Like, and the problem with that is it's good when it informs large groups of people about things that are pretty wrong that are going on, like say something like Surviving R. Kelly or those kind of documentaries. But then you have on the other side of things like the documentary about Michael Jackson, which I find those things are a bit more grey, because it's like, okay, we knew about these things when he was alive, and he went through the whole trial situation when he was alive, and kind of the social pariahness of everyone kind of being like, oh, wacko jacko.
Yeah.
But that goes also in hand with, like, he's not alive anymore, and you can create a skewed image or bias on whatever you want and create it into a documentary, and that documentary
He
can be
can't speak for
taken as
himself
gospel
anymore.
and he can't speak for
Yeah.
himself. And it's like, I think we've spoken about it before. It's like, you know, obviously you don't want to deny people's testimony if they're telling the truth or whatever, and assume that they're lying for the benefit of getting money or
Yeah.
being on the right side of this documentary or whatever. Now, I guess like this will be something else we can talk about. Like, what do you guys think about separating art from artists? Because, you know, I feel like the older you get, the more you kind of understand, you know, when you're younger and you have idols or idol worship or whatever, or people that you aspire to be or aspire to take aspects from, and you only see it from that like kind of one channel, like this guy was an amazing musician, this person was an amazing artist or whatever. And then you kind of go through that other period where you start hearing more negative things about them, and you kind of feel guilty yourself, like, oh, maybe I'm interpreting this piece of art wrong based on these other aspects that have come into play. But then you kind of feel like, I go back the other way again, where the older you get, you kind of realize that this person was just the same age as I am now, and they had no clue that what was happening to them was being documented or being taken as separately special from anybody else in the human population. So surely you can give people that kind of grace about that. But some people aren't open to that, you know, like some people, like, you know, somebody is a domestic abuser or a drug user or anything like that, and can't separate it from the art, which is kind of, I don't know, I feel like we cut ourselves off to so much if we do that, you know?
Yeah. Like separating the art and the artist. I like the idea of kind of not letting yourself dictate what the music or whatever you do like is all about, because sometimes it can get quite blurred where it's all about you specifically and not so much. This is just like social media wise. It can be more about kind of visually you as a person than it is actually about what you do, and then it turns into it's lopsided. There's too much of content on yourself, and there's not enough on what people are actually following you for, which is what you actually do. So it's like, in a way, I kind of like the idea of it's like some sort of mystique coming back, because there's genre bending and stuff, and through the laptop and all of that stuff we can do these days, and being able to make a song sound like many different things. But I think I'm a bit reminiscent on making it more like clear as to the point you're trying to put across, and like making it, say if you've got a social media account that's followable for people, that it is like about what you're actually doing and not about what you're having for breakfast.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's like,
It's a tough question to ask. My initial thought is, so in the context of a documentary, if you're watching someone else making up a story about someone, in particular a case of someone who's passed away, you're right, they have no way of having sort of any counterpoints to any point that gets brought up in those documentaries. But I mean, you want to hear the artist's perspective, because that's like intentionally how it's supposed to be interpreted,
that's the process,
because that's what they think. But at the same time, sometimes you might not get the insight directly from the artist because it's something they're perhaps reluctant to share, or you sometimes get the side, like especially if that information's coming from someone who knew that person personally, you might get information that had never been shared from the artist, so you sometimes do get a deeper understanding from someone else's perspective on it. Not
still
to say
someone
that
else's
that's
perspective.
Yeah, for sure. But sometimes you don't know how to interpret it. Like you might have no sort of insight as to how the artist actually wants you to interpret it. Yeah. But all that being said, a lot of what is happening recently in the music industry is all these posthumous albums coming out, all these young rappers that have been killed or have died, and personally, the ones that I listen to, they're just not good. Like they're not anything like what the artist I feel would actually put out.
Yeah, I guess it's because that, like you say, the thematic ability is taken out of it, because you can't say to the creator, you know, what are you thinking of as a concept when you're creating these demos or you're creating these verses to be put into a song later? What is there a big picture? And often there isn't a big picture, you know. It's like you see with I guess a person that happened to in the past, Tupac's albums. You know, I think Eminem produced some of Tupac's albums in the early 2000s, whatever, and those are just made of demos that are verses over the top of productions that other people have made, you know. Yeah. So there is no way to separate those and be like, oh, you know, Tupac was thinking about a concept album about life on the streets that was about this, and this, because often it's not. Often the recording process, like you'd probably know as well, is like just going into the when you're at the bigger level, or when you're at the, you know, that's what you're doing for a living every day. A lot of the time it would be like, I've got these concepts or these ideas, I'll throw some verses out there now, and then I'll come back to it another day, and that can be pieced together into a song. And that's often what those producers are left with, you know. Yeah,
and that's cool, I suppose, to if the artist has sort of consented to having that material that they've produced actually released, that's cool, but it still might not be put together in the way that the artist had intended or had. It will never be what it was supposed to be. So that's why it's hard to genuinely get on board with those posthumous albums, because it's like this is them, but it's not.
There's always like one or two that were like pretty much finished, and you can tell because they're more complete. And
fits into perhaps a previous album. Or
so from
the same feel.
Like a posthumous single was probably like going to be better than a whole album, because they're literally just trying to get as much content together of who was on, like whatever was on different people's laptops or like whatever to like.
And obviously, like for example, Juice WRLD I think has had 2 posthumous albums.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because one just came like out recently. Someone had 2. It was either X or Juice WRLD, and that just sort of goes to show you how much work those guys had done. Like if you've got enough content to make 2 whole albums out of, it's kind of like, man.
But how good are those albums?
Well, that goes back to my original point. They're not that great, but they had content there to be used.
But they will work for sure. I guess the thing as well is like maybe with that genre as well is that it's a bit easier to hide those production faults because of the lo-fi aspect of them too. You know, like it would be easier to convince, you know, X's listener base that these were songs that were fully formed or made while he was still alive, or you know, around when he was still alive, because his songs kind of had that demo form to them a lot of the time anyway.
Yeah,
but that's the
the way they're made. So like through the laptop, I guess that's kind of like a sonic thing that you can hear more, especially in trap music because it's all electronic. A lot of it's, well, I'd say all of it's made on laptops, but like the music, it does. I think it's because they're like 2-minute songs though, in a way too. It's like little ideas. And I think when they're like probably trying to put one of the albums together, it'll be pieces of different verses. They're only looking for vocals, so it'll just be a whole lot of different things, and they can make a song out of 3 different demo ideas that he's had together.
Yeah, for sure.
Whoever, and just put a backing track and you beat behind it, and they've got like one of the hottest songs.
And alongside that point, a lot of those albums are filled with features as well. Yeah, I think one of the Juice WRLD albums, just every song has a feature.
Then you're only looking for one verse.
Yeah,
you know? And then you just get someone else to
easily just
and they're the new marketable face for it. They get put in the video.
Yeah, exactly. Makes sense. Yeah, but it's still to your original question. You are, in that case, really removing the artist from the art, so that's why it has sort of a negative connotation, at least in how I interpret the album. It's like, it's not fully pieced together by that person, so how am I supposed to really interpret this album?
Something like Lil Peep, when he's putting out, well, he's not putting them out, but the stuff that's come out after he's died, there's part of me is listening to Big Head or Smokers X production, because I know how integral a few people were to the overall sound of Lil Peep's music. So you can kind of be like, for me, I'm like excited for more Lil Peep songs, obviously, but at the same time, some whatever production these people were putting on it too. But say that's actually probably the only artist that I'm that's died
Yeah.
that I'm kind of going to be like
Yeah.
overly like wow, because I like the way it sounds. I like the idea of blending the distorted guitars with trap music, and kind of that whole group of people, that GBC and people that are the artists and the producers and all of that. I'm always kind of pretty excited to see what's coming out of that.
In that
So,
case of Goth Boy Click and Lil
Yeah.
Peep, it's easy to sort of have perhaps a posthumous album because a lot of the producers that were working with Lil Peep were pretty much Lil Peep's producers. So
Yeah.
you almost know whenever it's a Smoker Sack beat
Yeah.
or whoever
Yeah.
that it sounds like a Lil Peep song anyway. So it's easy to do that. Whereas if you just have sort of random, just
Yeah.
high quality people in on a
super
track,
compiled.
yeah, you can sort
Yeah.
of tell when it's perhaps
Yeah.
not a beat
That's-
that they would have chosen or something.
That's what's like, yeah. It's interesting, I guess, when the difference between admiration for an artist that's passed away and them as like a commodity. Like you could say that Lil Peep would have the production crew around him that were supporting him when he was alive, and they would want to see his material through to like the best of their ability because they're invested in it.
Yeah.
Whereas when somebody becomes a commodity because of their name or because of that sales figure that they can generate, e.g. taking that example again, Tupac, it's almost like they almost auction off. It would be a thing that would go around. It'd be like, hey, people would know people, and they'd be like, I've heard rumors that they're looking for producers to make Tupac's album based off of old demos. You know what I mean? And then it becomes a passable, tradable thing where you can change the actual oral content of it is going to be a lot different.
Can go so wrong though. Imagine taking it on and then the whole fan base not liking what you do with the music.
Especially
It
someone
happens a
like
lot.
Tupac, that
Yeah.
would be detrimental.
It happens a lot,
Yeah.
for sure. And like even in the Michael Jackson case, there was an album that they came out with, I think it was in 2012. Like 6 of the songs on the album weren't even by Michael Jackson. They were somebody that the studio had hired to impersonate
like
Michael
him,
Jackson's voice.
Yeah,
That's
so
crazy.
that's it's still an art form, but it's not Michael Jackson.
Well, how messed up is that? Like you can't even rest at that point. You're literally dead. You're in the ground. You've been dead for a while.
Yeah.
It's like they're still pushing your brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they won't let you go. It's like
Yeah.
hologram concerts, It's
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Was it
Yeah.
Prince that had said before he died,
That he
or had in
didn't
his
release
will
music
that
on
he didn't
Spotify?
want? Was it just Spotify? I
No,
thought
it was on the internet.
Yeah.
Before he died, because I remember like trying to listen to Prince's early stuff, like the late 70s, early 80s stuff when I was younger, and just reading up about it. And you couldn't find it on YouTube, you couldn't find it online because he had hired like a legal team to be really stringent about it. Like they
Right.
would search the web looking for like LimeWire
That whole-
torrents and
Yeah, that the torrenting thing that popped up kind of scared a lot of people, and
Yeah.
they were instantly negative over it, which is fair because it's a loss of money and stuff. But it's like a massive negative reaction to that in the early 2000s. I remember was Metallica and
Napster.
the drummer for Metallica. Like I can't remember if he was for or against it.
He was
but
against
he
it.
was against,
There's a little girl that they sued.
and it was like, we will bring them down.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, that didn't work. It's
Yeah.
like freedom to the people. Like it's always going to go, to the mass
Yeah.
side or whatever. But
And the shoe's kind of on the other foot in some ways as well, because I saw a little Vice documentary the other day actually about It Wasn't Me by Shaggy, right?
I
So
watched that.
So basically it's one of the biggest selling songs of the 2000s, and the reason that it kind of blew up was because there was this DJ in Hawaii that was looking for new music to play on his radio station at the time. And he was using Napster to download stuff.
True.
And he saw that Shaggy had a new album. I was like, try this, try it out. Just download it off Napster. And he heard It Wasn't Me and was like, oh, wow.
Because that wasn't supposed to be the single or
No,
something.
it wasn't. They hadn't even decided on it at that point. I don't
Yeah.
think they hadn't found a proper distributor.
Yeah.
And he downloaded it and played it on his radio station and reckoned that he was just getting hundreds of calls. People being like, yo,
That's sick.
who was that? Was that what was that? And he's
That's
like,
it,
it wasn't me.
Snowballing because of people actually enjoying it rather
Yeah.
than it being forcefully kind of made to be put in front of you and you accept that you like it. Like pop music, how it's just saturated or whatever.
Yeah.
It's cool to see organically grow through a community kind of thing.
Are you still on your pop music sort of ideology with your own music, or the?
I don't know if I can help it.
Yeah.
It's one thing I've been thinking about. It's because growing up, I don't know why, but I just really like something catchy about the song.
It's pop music.
It's pop music, and it's I don't know, and I thoroughly enjoy the more thought-provoking kind of music too. But even anytime I go to make something, I'm so like routinely in structured pop music, and it's not. I don't. It's just not something that I try and like seek. And
you're not going into something going right.
It just and it's kind of annoying because it's like, wow, I would love to be like making different kind of things. That's not verse chorus, but it's just like.
Do you consider yourself a pop artist though?
Yeah,
You're not
the
really
depth
phased
to
anyway.
it, you know, like I
Yeah.
can't say I'm. It's pop music.
Yeah.
So
Well, you and I were talking about this on the last podcast, Liam, about what defines pop music, and it really the definition of pop music is quite broad and obscured because it
comes with
it
so many
really just means
different forms.
popular. So
Yeah, it
it
does.
can just be whatever's popping at the time. Like trap music at a point was, you could say, was pop music because it was just the trend, and still is now.
pop music is trap now.
Yeah.
It's just like it's gotten itself to the most the biggest position in listenership and whatever. It's definitely
And
at the top.
popular music is the seed for tons of things in general. Like I was thinking about this the other day, the Wax song "Honey," right? So you would have been involved with production of that. So like that's "Love You Inside and Out" by the Bee Gees, right?
Yeah.
That's a popular #1 song from 1979. You know, like that was what
Did
would
it
have
actually go number one? Or
been. Yeah,
something?
there's the last
Crazy.
number one song.
Yeah.
That would be like what you'd be hearing in cars and in stores and things like that. It's just the da 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 da.
Or even thinking like just over 10 years ago, I always like to think, wow, all right, I used to hear Feel Good Inc. was probably like number one, and Kooks, Naive.
Yeah,
All
well.
of these forgotten pop songs that are not. I feel like pop music at the moment, and it's cool because laptops are helping everyone, but they're really produced music, and it's either an R&B song with a wee bit of trap, or an R&B song with a wee bit of EDM, or like there's not much anomaly. You might get that in like Billie Eilish. She's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. But to think that a 2-guitar, bass, and drum band had one of the biggest songs in the world, or surely was in New Zealand, 10 years ago, and to think where we're at now, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Very short amount of time that had such a big change. But that goes to show how, I'm not sure if that specific example is translatable to music like years and years later, so like the 50s, but the rate at which our attention spans are shortening, especially millennials and through social media and things, it does get to a point where you really just get sick of a song so quickly, and there's so many more people in the industry as well making music all the time. There's so much information to get and so much to be hearing that it's so easy to just move on to the next thing.
It's also the way that popular music is expressed in culture as well. Like you know, like the disco movement is like a closed thing. It's a going to clubs thing. It's like a more open use of drug use thing. It influences a whole lot of spheres of life. Whereas now, because there are so many streams that popular music is gathering from, it's influenced by different things like TikTok.
It's just more global.
For sure.
Everything's been globalized. And that's cool in a way, because I feel like we are all the same, everyone in the world, no matter where we are. And it's kind of cool to have like the ability to know what's kind of bubbling in a different part of the world, and you can have it like instantly in front of you. And to think that something can be popular from more than just like the America or like I don't know, the UK kind of has a big push in Western, kind of what's popular in Western too, but it's predominantly America. And the idea of the internet opening it up to something from somewhere else being able to go number one, but it happening more frequently, because it obviously has happened in the past or whatever. But I just like the idea of everyone being connected and kind of like knowing the same thing. But I just feel like there needs to be more of it, more different things, and that'll come, you know, because we're like one of the first generations to have like tech for a long amount of time.
Well, we grew up with it all.
Yeah, I guess I got it like year 6, year 7 was when my life started to be online.
Yeah.
And kids now have it, they have tablets at like 3 and they're fully tech integrated.
Don't get me started on
Yeah.
But
that's not wrong. I don't know. I don't think
young
that
kids having.
if they're learning from it, I'm sure, well, that's positive.
Yeah.
Or whatever, but it's just, I guess.
in a school educational capacity, sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you shouldn't be buying your child
No, for
an
sure.
iPhone or an iPad
For sure.
at that
and,
age.
and there's a lot of sides to that argument, of course. But at the same time, I personally, the way I think about it is this: I don't want to be the kind of person that's looking down the road 20 years from now when I am an older adult and looking at kids and being like, man, these kids are fucking stupid.
I don't
What are they
think
doing?
anyone wants to be like that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? So one of those things, one of the examples for it is just that technology is soldiering on at such a rate that even,
Yeah.
like we said about what we've been exposed to, when I first started listening to music, it was on cassettes, on a Walkman.
Yeah.
And that was already a technology that was 20 years old. So at that first kind of, that boom that's happening is what we're right in the middle of right now. So like, if kids growing up are going to be different and have to learn through tablets, and maybe that's just the trajectory that the human race is going on. I don't really want to be, I could have my own
Keeping yourself open to change.
Yeah, exactly. I can have my own opinions on it and be
Yeah.
like, oh man, that is a little bit weird that this kid's on this tablet and whatever. But as long as that isn't like something that's super detrimentally affecting everyone
Yeah.
around them, then I'd like to stay open-minded to that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think of it more from a stimulant side of things. Like when
Yeah.
you put those devices in front of kids at that age, that is insanely immersive and that's
It
all
warps
they end
their
up wanting to
reality.
be doing. So if all they ever want to do is play with the phone, and they will because nothing else is going to be excited as how you can interact with the game or whatever on your phone or iPad or whatever it's going to be, that's pretty detrimental if you can only get them interested in that one thing, or you can't get away from that one thing if they're always begging you for their phone, or it's not good for the eyes and things as well. Just on another point, I just feel very strongly about this topic. Yeah. Something that you mentioned before that segued into something that I wanted to ask you. So before we were talking about Kanye West and the new song that he's got out with Travis Scott. You're quite an avid Travis Scott fan. How do you perceive him these days as opposed to earlier on in his discography?
It's obviously a bit different. It's not. I don't want to say it's less challenging. It's just more the same as what's popular at the moment. Is Travis's kind of, or Astro World. It's like, I don't know. I like
What was it about him initially that you liked? And do you think it's different from how
melodic
he is now?
pop trap
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
in a psychedelic way. I don't know if that was ever really a selling point, but when I think about it more these days, I'm like, well, it is incredibly reverby and kind of vibey.
Yeah.
There is a lot of psychedelic in it. And I just liked the short and sweet aspects, the concept, like Radio was great in terms of a full album with an idea, and then Days Before and Al Faro were like his ideas, kind of, and there's some great songs on that. But I feel like more so with Travis and trap music, I've been showing that through people.
Sure.
I haven't gone out of my way to find it. That was like Travis and specifically was kind of one of the first trap artists that I was into, but it was all just through people playing the music that I'm friends with.
Yeah.
And then me taking a liking to it, and I think what I got from it the most was just like the pop element.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I was viewing him as someone that was gonna kind of keep delivering and keep being interesting, but it's met the mainstream.
Yeah.
I think Travis has, and I want to say I guess it's up for him to surprise us with his next project, or
Yeah. I think being an artist like that, you can't always help how popular you're going to be. You can make
Yeah.
your music to a point, but
yeah,
the audience is going to
yeah.
determine
It's
what's
like
going to happen with you.
trap, probably the first big crossover. Maybe this is just what I think. Migos and Travis probably were the first introduction for trap to radio music, and it's like the first are never going to be the most prolific, I don't think. So maybe we're actually waiting around for the next Travis incarnation to kind
Sure.
of deliver what he was delivering, but
He set the bar
in a bigger way.
Yeah.
Because he likes to compliment Kid Cudi and Kanye as inspirations, and it's like, wow, they weren't even that long ago. So like you're kind of drawing from something that that's happened quite recently. So you're still in trap music in general is in its infancy. It has come from hip hop, but it's like still a really new thing to everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't want to forecast or say where I think it's going, but it's like deeply rooted in electronic music. So it's kind of like in a way, well, no, it's not. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like, I feel like it's the first kind of trap it's first electronic rap music that's fully taken over it's culture too. It's a whole lot of different things.
Sure.
It's not just the music.
Yeah. Part of Travis Scott's music, like when Days Before Radio came out, that was on a different level of, this was just like, this is something that is so different to anything I've heard.
Yeah.
There was something I just absolutely loved about it, and all the elements he was using in that music was something that I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah.
But now into Astroworld and beyond, there's still those same elements in the music, but it has a different feeling, and I don't know if it's just based on a perception because now he is that popular.
Mm-hmm.
Like having him on the Fortnite game, having that whole thing, that was like, Jesus, that is a huge thing. Like, I don't think he's a sellout per se, and that's kind of what I wanted to ask you, but he is at such an enormous level
He's
of
kind of gotten
fame
what he's
now.
wanted, I think.
Yeah,
And it's like,
and that's
where
just,
do you go from there?
Yeah,
It's again
exactly.
with, like we were saying with Kanye, you get to the mainstream, you get
Yeah.
to the point, and then now it's this tug of war of like you being able to, are you going to conform and keep up to it,
Yeah.
or are you going to let your mind and creativity steer the ship?
Yeah,
And it's like a situation, like, I don't know if people know that they're getting themselves into it because it must happen so fast, and it's kind of like, why would you be saying no to opportunity? you
yeah,
know?
for sure.
So
Yeah.
like it's like they get to this point, and then they kind of have to like decide for themselves, or they let people decide for them what their output's going to look like and sound like.
It's a hard thing to weigh up the, like, I think there's a aesthetic in being like an underground artist, so making music in such a way that it doesn't sort of grow that massive audience, but still you want to obviously be successful. You sort of want to live off what you make.
Yeah.
I feel like you sort of end up at a point where if you're getting that much opportunity, like in the case of Travis Scott, you kind of just follow that because it's like, well, it's money. But then there's somewhat, at least for me, I don't know, probably not generally speaking, but a part of his persona, or like how I actually perceive his music, gets a wee bit diminished because you almost look at them, oh, well, now you're just like a big pop thing. Everyone knows who you are. It's not as cool to like Travis Scott anymore. If everyone knows who Travis Scott is, that's sort of that wee thing. And not saying that affects the music in any way, but it's more just a perception side of things. And I just wondered if you felt at all the
it's
same.
definitely it's gotten away from the point of what it actually should be, which was the music or whatever. But I will still wait, and I don't know if I'll be waiting. I will listen, and next time that something drops from Travis, and I'm not going to go, oh man, or like, hell, hopefully I'll be like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I'll just be like, okay, sweet. And then, because
done.
there's just this big cycle of people putting stuff out all the time.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, and I feel as Kanye is a good example of this, is really taking. I think in his case, there's a lot of ego-driven stuff as well, but to be able to get to that level of fame where everyone knows who you are, but still being able to make a real wacky album, like when Jesus came out, that was like, whoa, this is coming from Kanye, someone that everyone knows and can tell you songs.
Well, it's
of
funny.
his.
That's kind of what they dangle in front of you, isn't it? I mean, like it's cyclic in a way. Like you start making beats on your computer or just making demos yourself, whatever, and then you reach a position where you start being recorded again, and that's when other hands get into the pot, and then they try to steer you in the direction, and the thing they lure in front of you is to be like, oh, do this because this is what's going to maximize your potential, and then you're going to have the money to go back to making the music that you wanted to do. You're just also going to have the clout, you know what I mean? So it's almost like you're chasing your own tail, where you start off with the passion for the music, and then maybe it deviates. You try to maintain a little bit of control. It's really just a bucking bronco, isn't it? You're just holding on to it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they're going to guide me in this direction. Hopefully I can maintain some integrity. And then at the end of it, I'm going to be the golden goose, and I'm going to have $25 million in the bank, and I can make a Yeezus, or I can make the next kind of album that I want to make. Like, I feel like that happens in all aspects of the music. Like in the rock scene, if you want to call it that, I feel like that's kind of happened to Kevin Parker from Tame Impala.
Yeah.
Where you see him now, he does lots of DJ sets on his own, or he made that song on Astro World.
Yeah.
Is it Skeletons? It's
Yeah.
one of those ones where you can tell he obviously want to get on board because that's what that's what he's
saying
passionate
yes to
about.
opportunity.
Yeah,
as well, in a way.
exactly, and that's probably the thing for him is like those first couple of albums, Tame Impala, they start out quite kind of like garage rocky, psychedelic, whatever, and then he hits the kind of mainstream curve. He's like almost right there. Like there'll be a lot of people that know who he is. Like I don't think he's particularly. Yeah. He's not quite. He hasn't hit the mainstream
not
like
a household
Travis
name.
Scott has, but he's still commonly known. You know,
Yeah.
and then now he's probably in the next phase where he's like, oh, well, how can I step out of this but still maintain that passion to be making something new that I like, you know?
Yeah.
And
Being an artist and like trying to figure out what the move is and what you should do and stuff, it's like I'm at no level to say like one way about it, but I feel it just must be incredibly hard to kind of pick and choose like what way you want to go about it and your integrity in the situation too.
Yeah.
that's what I was kind of wondering, like, sorry, pump that. What's like what are the differences for you, say, if you're on stage with Jack Berry and you're kind of leading the outfit and you're in the mindset of lead singer playing compared to like when you're playing with 3/4 and you're kind of just, you're part of the setup.
Yeah.
Do you feel, is there a difference in the vibe when you get on stage or when you're playing, or is it kind of, you find yourself going into the same mode where like instinct takes over? Or
Like a bit of it's the same thing, and in a way it's no different because it's like you're getting in front of people to essentially do the same thing. But the way I kind of view the Jack Berry stuff is it's more of like I'm kind of just making up, because it's all just coming from whatever I want to do or whatever I'm planning to do. So in a way, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out more what I am doing, and I'm like still getting more confident with being the main attraction, the main thing, because that's not where I come from and not what I really know how to do. But just trying to make it comfortable for myself to be a lead singer and be in front of things. But then when I go to 3/4 marathon, I look at that more of like a learning situation. I've been put into, because that's a band. And there's a writer, so there's Ruben within that as well.
Yep.
And to pick up the way that Ruben specifically and the band as instrumentalists do things, I just see as an experience to kind of add to my plethora of what I can do. And it's not like in a way where I'm going to directly take what they do. It's just a situation where I can get involved playing music, I can learn something from a different guitar player and all of that kind of stuff. And I can be doing more of what I like to do.
yeah, you can be in the shoes of the sideman. So when you're kind of in the Jack Berry frame, you can get a better feel for how the other players in the band are going to play because you've been doing that as well at the same time.
Essentially, yeah.
Sort of getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a different feeling that comes out when you play for one or the other? Is it more when it's Jack Berry? Are you at a point
Music-based,
now where
probably.
it's sort of
It's genre different. Like 3/4 marathons music's a little bit more harder in a sense. And to not be limited to one way of doing things, when I'm in that situation, I can play the guitar differently.
Yeah.
I can try different things, and it's super cool to have a group of people, because Theo's in Jack Berry, so it's like it's a similar group of people, but it's a different output.
Yeah, right.
So I just see it as like a situation for me to be able to try something different.
Yeah. Yeah, it helps that you all know each other. You're not just sort of joining in some other random band because they needed a guitar player or something. Yeah.
Pretty cool to have different kind of takes on music. So, like, we don't all sound the same, and we can kind of learn things and be have experience in different situations because of the way that it sounds or the way that it is.
Have you had much input into the music of 3/4 marathon, or is that purely Ruben? You're just there to play the songs?
Purely Ruben.
Yeah.
And then so songwriting, and he's just getting into recording as well. So him, and then it gets brought to the band and adapted in a way, like a live sense, but essentially just coming through him. And it's like, I find it super cool to know what makes him tick or whatever, because he's the he's the forefront and the singer in that band, and I can relate in my way where I am in my situation. So it's like I'm watching you do it in your way, and how you go about it.
And that's a good way to learn for yourself as
It's
well.
like-
There's lots of transferable skills there.
And it's a person. It's not like I can scroll and look for hours.
Yeah, you can actually hear it from his mouth. And
and it's
see.
in a way like I don't know how
Pick up
I
on the
would
cues.
Google how to be inspired for new music.
Yeah.
But you can just kind of meet people that have their own take on it and take from it whatever you want to take.
Yeah.
Kind of situation.
You guys both might be able to answer this question perhaps in different ways, but I've always wondered that music is, at least in the physical side of an instrument, I don't really know what makes a good instrument and a bad instrument. So in the context of a guitar, if you're picking an electric guitar, what is it that you would pick one over the other? Is it purely just how that guitar sounds? And what is it about the two guitars that makes such a difference for you to go one way or the other?
For me, always it's been budget.
Right.
I don't
Whatever
want-
you can get in your hands that day.
I don't.
Second that.
I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I was going for this rich tone.
Yeah.
It's more of like whatever I could get my hands on.
Sure.
But
If money was no object, you know enough about
yeah,
guitars to really
I don't know.
for preference?
I'd buy one that I quite like Stratocasters. I like Fender. They're very versatile. But it's for me to go out and learn more about what's out there as well.
Yeah, right.
Like I only know what I've seen, and there could be this perfect guitar out there for me that I have no idea exists. So
Yeah.
it's just been a money thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Money, 100%.
Yeah.
But
But
like,
even
the same
still,
thing-
if you were shopping for a guitar, of course, budget is inclined, but surely you sort of test out a few to.
For sure. But like, I guess it depends on where you first get the guitar and what you learn on as well.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, I've got a Kieran, which is a pretty obscure guitar, but you know, I was using my friend's G&L, and I reckon I didn't really know much about G&Ls, but I had it at my place where I was like, damn, this is a nice guitar. But I feel like that happens every time. I'll pick someone's like Dan Electro up and be like, oh man, this is so slim and so nice. And I'll just be like,
So-
feel like I'm playing a lot better. And then I'll just go back home and pick up my Kieran and just feel like it's really sloppy and be like, oh.
So when my question relates to, so when you say it's a nice guitar, like it just looks.
No,
dope?
it's
Nah.
like this. It's like a
you just
weight
have a
and
feel
feel
of it.
thing.
You can tell
Yeah.
when something's like
You can pick it up and
it's like buying a fake version of a shoe or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
You can tell
Yeah.
that it's been made with like more thought, and it's just made out of better materials
Yeah.
or whatever. And that's like, I feel like that comes into play in a gigging aspect. You want to be playing good quality live music in front of people, but that's not to say that you could have this really cheap kind of trashy guitar at home that you decide to record with whenever
Right.
you want to record with, because it gives off this certain kind of sound and this attitude or whatever. But for me, quality, like I've just recently got a new guitar and I'm like, this is going to be awesome because I'm not going to have to worry if my input's going to mess up while I'm live. Like I'm just walking up and plugging in now.
Yeah.
I don't have this trash bag
Yeah, right.
of shit that I'm have to like. That it adds more anxiety to the situation of having to play in front of people. It's just a guitar that's just going to be like, oh my god, is it actually going to make noise?
Yeah, yeah. That was your old light blue one. Sorry, I don't know what they call
A
but-
white. I had that white Stratocaster.
Oh, that's
so
right.
I've had that.
Yeah.
It's like a Squire. So it's there's Fender and then there's like the more affordable version of that.
Sure.
And I've had that since I was like year 10.
Yeah, right.
And it's literally been the only guitar I've had. And just I don't know. Started the band. So I was like, oh, well, I've got a guitar, and I've just been gradually running that into the ground.
Yeah.
Like I have not picked it up since I've got my new one, and it's like
Yeah, must be a pretty good feeling. Yeah.
100%.
Where is this?
What do you got here,
I
Liam?
just found a picture of the Kieran that I have, but it's slipped away from me.
Oh, there's just heaps of guitars out
Oh,
there.
there'd be too many to choose from.
Yeah,
I mean, purely for me, being a non-guitar player, it would really just come down to aesthetics. I think
Yeah,
whenever I pick
yeah.
anything, it's just like, damn, that looks like a nice gat.
Yeah.
That would be the one I go for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand the price.
And
of
then you
things.
get more into it, and you kind of like, I
Yeah.
like it for its sound, and
Yeah, yeah.
all that
Oh,
jazz.
There it is. That's what my Kieran looks like.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
So it's like it's got quite a bit of weight to the bass. It's small. It's almost like a 3-chorded guitar
Yeah.
in a way.
Short scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it but it's got a lot of weight around the bass, which I quite like. Like it almost feels like it's rooting you into the ground quite well.
Yeah.
But it's got some. Do you know how like I suppose I should ask you? Do you know how humbuckers work?
I know that they are. Oh, I don't even want.
Because I've tried. Yeah, I tried to like get my head in because I don't know because this one has.
To be honest, I don't know how they work. I
Yeah.
know what they are, but
Yeah, because this one has humbuckers where you pull on the
yeah. So they're like
the two dials.
When people say single coil, it's
Yeah.
like one of those, and they're like two put together, so
Yeah.
it's like double the power.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, you literally pull out that tone lever in the humbuckers. That's how they activate it. I guess I don't really.
Yeah.
I don't fully understand it much myself, but
Yeah.
Are you genuinely relying on your pedals to sort of make the sound you want? Like there's
In a way,
small
yeah.
aspect in how like raw how one guitar would sound from another.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
you'd have
it
to have a
kind of
pretty good ear
goes
for it?
guitar, then it goes amp. So
Right.
it's like
Yeah.
amp is actually delivering for the sound or the
Sure.
tone that you want, and then there's effects to alter the sound.
yeah,
So if you can get there's people that are just happy with guitar and amp combination. Like there's amps out there that have great reverb on them that you don't need a reverb pedal or whatever.
Even amps. Yeah, amps will have reverb.
Yeah,
on
they've
them.
got all that kind of stuff, but
Right.
it's like it's really a pick your own path
Yeah.
kind of thing.
And I suppose it's one of those things when you pick it up and you
Yeah.
play it and you go, yeah, this just
Yeah.
feels right.
Yeah.
What was
I
your new
get
guitar?
that.
Dan?
I got a Fender Mustang, not very original, but
Sounds dope.
it's
From
yeah.
a non-guitar player.
Yeah, I don't know. They've got a wee bit of a resurgence at the moment, I suppose. But it's like
That's pretty sexy.
I like to think of it as well. When I got it, I was assuming it was going to be quite a lot like the Stratocaster, and it is in a way, but it's more of a rhythm guitar.
Right.
And I look at that I was like, wow, that's handy because I'm playing rhythm guitar in 3/4 marathon.
Sure.
And majority of what I do is rhythm guitar and Jack Berry as well, with the odd lead line or whatever. So it's like happened to be actually quite beneficial to the situation of
Sure.
the music I make and
Yeah.
stuff.
So,
But it was more of like I don't know, I don't want to say it was an aesthetic grab, but like it might have been a wee bit. I was like,
Yeah,
oh, this
well,
looks kind of cool.
sometimes you just got to flex,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And to get something that's actually going to not give me trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's like I've gotten to the benchmark of like a decent guitar that's
Yeah.
like going to work.
That's it. And
Yeah.
that's one of those things you learn the hard way sometimes is you sometimes just have to buy the right equipment, like
Yeah.
aside from whether it's new or not. If
Yeah.
you're looking cheaply, obviously sometimes it's what you can afford, but you might learn that,
Yeah.
if it's only
Yeah.
something you
Well,
can
you can
afford,
get-
it might not last a test
You can
of
kind
time.
of get something close to what you can afford if you do some research.
Sure.
I wasn't even doing that. Like throughout high school, I would have gone in between like 5 to 6 different guitars, and they were just like, "Oh, that looks cool."
Yeah, right.
It was never like, "This is gonna make my mid range, my solo sound
Yeah, right.
super sick." It was just like,
It's just a new game.
I like the look of it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy it, but I don't know. I guess I'm trying to think of things more like productively. I don't know. I'm just trying to actually think when it comes to buying these days. So
How long do you think a new guitar would last you? How long, in your case, where you're playing gigs
For
on
life.
fairly
you can like the upkeep of your guitar is purely up to you. You can like I've heard through people that I'm like friends with, like Theo, for instance, he was like, I just went and got my guitar tuned up and like some person made it work better. I was like, oh yeah, I could go and do that. You know,
yeah.
like, sweet as. It's like someone like repairing your shoes or whatever. It's like it actually makes a beneficial difference.
Sure.
So like you can have any kind of guitar and you could get someone to look at it and kind of fix it up and spec it up. And
Yeah.
it will be just as good as anything else.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think the main thing that changes is just the tone.
Yeah.
Like the different shape of the guitar, different wood, different
Yeah.
pickups, different sound.
Mm.
But
And you'll have a good ear for that being playing as long as you have. I feel like I would
you'd think
know the
so.
difference.
But I've only played like 1 or 2 different designs of
Sure.
guitar. So I've never been like, I don't really know what's out there.
Yeah.
And that's exciting in a way.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I guess that kind of comes through probably money.
Yeah.
You can kind of experiment in what you're buying and what more you can add. But
Yeah.
I've just gone for what I think is going to help and be most practical
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
and kind of look cool at the same time.
I want to take you back a wee bit here. I wanted to talk to you about the Battle of the
Battle of the
Battle of the
Bands.
Bands.
of the berries.
I was going to say Battle of the Berries, but we're not talking about skateboarding. Battle of the Bands.
Yeah.
Was that win pretty special to you, or was it sort of just like finally?
I can look back at it and think of a point where it was like, all right, I'm going to start playing live.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's nothing. Like it was a really cool opportunity for me to be like, I'm being forced to get out of my comfort zone and sing and play and do stuff in front of people, because I'd just not done that. I'd been a guitarist in a band. I'd tried to figure out how to use GarageBand and start to get into production. And then so in like 2016, I had finally, because I'd written a lot of songs at high school, not a lot, like 10 tops. And I was like, why don't I try and produce these within the software that I'm learning how to do stuff for other people in? And then I
It's there for you.
recorded those, and I was like, SoundCloud, all right. And then it just so happened that I was like, all right, I know Tane, I was in a band with him. I know Nick, I was in a band with him. Oh, Kane, he said that he played guitar at year 8. I was like, well, that'll do. That's bar chords. Like,
You've got something in
yeah.
there. Yeah.
And then put the band together for Battle of the Bands, and that just kind of like, was like, started it.
Yeah.
It wasn't super intentional, but I guess in a way from me entering it, that
It was a pretty quick turnaround from that point.
Yeah,
of
it was
getting
just
guys together.
It was just perfect timing.
Yeah.
It was like there was a burgeoning live music scene in Dunedin, and I just so happened to start a band kind of near towards the start of that, or within the first year of it.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to kind of open for people and get involved in that community and that like little sphere of musicians and stuff. But the Battle of the Bands was just a good way for me to get over myself.
Yeah.
And sing in front of people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just you got to learn the hard way, I suppose.
Yeah.
Just get
I
put in that environment.
can't think of any other way I'd be forced or to do that. It wasn't like there was. Because I just never thought of me singing, and then I started putting auto-tune on like Tane's music or within the software, and I was like, oh, this is a bit of an enabler, isn't it? This is gonna. It's at least not going to sound like what I sound like. So that was good enough. I was like, oh, sweet. And then started doing that. And then I was just like, got showed a live auto-tune pedal. I was like, oh, well, if this exists, then I can sing in front of anybody. Because it's like, I don't even know what it's doing. It could be, because I remember the first couple gigs, I had it way turned up and it was just making me go, and I was like, oh, well, I don't care as long as it's like, supposedly putting me in the key that I'm supposed to be in. I do not really mind.
Yeah.
So that was like so there's like Battle of the Bands are getting an auto-tune pedal, and I was like, oh, sweet. Like, I can, and.
So that they provided that, not you?
I provided that, but that in its sense was like more like push for me to play live.
I see. Yeah.
Battle of the Bands and the auto-tune pedal. I was just like, that little combination, I don't want to say enough confidence because I still don't have mega confidence, but I had enough to like, and the great band that I have behind me.
There you go.
They help. They make me comfortable.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I know that Tane's going to deliver because he's good at playing bass.
Yeah.
Great.
To me, I think
Great
he's
harmony
awesome.
vocals as well.
And I get told that all the time, don't I? Oh, your bass player's got great. And I'm like, sweet.
Yeah.
I know he's got a good voice.
I love a good falsetto live.
Yeah.
I love when someone just commits to it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
So,
He's got a
yeah.
good stage presence. Good.
Yeah,
to have
it's
on stage.
when it's live, it's a collaborative effort. I'm never
Yeah.
going to say like, I'm not going to dictate you only appreciating my side of things.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
it's not. It's 4 people coming together to
Yeah.
play their instruments live in front of people, and it just so happens that we're playing my songs that I have written, and that's just the choice. That's just how it's happened. I'm not like, I don't want to say don't make music with other people, don't do whatever. It's just the situation that I'm in, the Jack Berry stuff. I write it, I produce it, try to on my laptop, and I have 3 other people that really want to play it live with me. I'm like, that's awesome. And I don't really mind how people perceive it. They can think it's a band. They can think whatever it is, just as long as I kind of want to listen to the song.
Yeah.
That's my only like,
It's always going to, like, if you're playing live in a band.
Yeah.
People are going to know you as a band.
Yeah.
Like for ages, I didn't know that Kevin Parker was all of Tame Impala,
Tame
like all
Impala.
of that.
Well, he
until-
wasn't at first.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Is it? Lines were blurred.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think in the first couple of albums, some of the guys who made the band Pond there's a couple of songs like Half Full Glass of Wine, and those songs are sung by the drummer. So I think most of the instruments were played by him in the first albums, except for the drumming and some of the bass.
Yeah.
And then I think as it got
Yeah.
rolling, he took over. But that happens in lots of scenarios. Yeah.
It's-
There's that story about Dave Grohl with the first Foo Fighters.
So he
I'm not really a big
Re-records the drums.
Yeah, he went in
Yeah.
at night and just re-recorded
Yeah.
the
Oh,
drum
really?
parts and the bass
Yeah.
parts, and they all came in and
Yeah.
like, wait, this isn't what we played the other day.
Sorry, for Nirvana or for Foo
No,
Fighters?
for the Foo
Fighters.
Fighters,
Yeah.
for their first album.
So
yeah.
Dave comes from being a drummer in Nirvana, and he's like, I've got this song, and I completely the way that he went about it, I don't understand. Like,
Okay.
tell the drummer,
Tell
Be-
everyone you're doing
be
it.
like, all right, like I don't know, as a drummer, I've got a different perspective on how these drums should sound for the song I've written. Fair enough, like
Yeah.
sweet as,
Yeah.
but don't re-record it without telling the drummer.
Yeah.
'Cause, like that's the drummer's job is
Yeah.
to deliver drums. You could be like, hey, do you want to go grab a coffee? You know, put your arm around and be like, sorry,
Look,
mate.
buddy.
I've re-recorded them.
The hi-hats would
cutting it.
sound really good if we were doing them a different way, and just do it like in that sense. And I think that's kind of like where a lot of like, so with the laptop and kind of DIY production and doing it all yourself, it's met with, you're allowed to do it when you're recording it by yourself because it's easy, but when you need to play it live, you're doing it with a band, so there's automatically more people involved. And I feel like that idea has become more comfortable for people to be like okay with.
Sure.
'Cause the way that I see it in Jack Berry, I'm happy that like it's a group of people, but like I'm happy that Tane's got his own project.
Yeah.
That he can like go home and fester on and think about. In the same way as Theo. He's singing, he's making beats and stuff. It's like a collaborative group of people. In this situation, it's us trying to get my music across, but I play guitar in Tane's band. And I just show up and I deliver the same thing that he delivers for me in a different context. And I think that like with the power of the laptop and how like quicker and like easier it is to make music these days, that situation is even more like kind of like perfect.
Sure.
You can be involved in so many different things on an instrumentation kind of standpoint because of knowing how to play an instrument. Like Tane knows guitar to a point where he can do it. He can record it in his own song in his bedroom.
Yeah.
And then I can figure it out and play it live for him. But it's like without having to be like, oh, can you make it on Thursday to the band practice or to the recording?
Yeah.
And then or whoever's like, no, I can't. I've got to do this.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that. You can just plug it into your laptop, record it, and show it to band practice. Say, hey, this is what the bass line sounds like. Feel free to do whatever you want.
Right.
I know that you've got like a little bit of wow. Like take it in your own direction, but just know that you have to hit these root notes
Sure.
and
Sure.
do whatever you want.
As long as you're in key, right?
Yeah.
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 Crazy.
Yeah.
That's a good dynamic to have. And
Yeah.
part of the reason I think why Garbage is working so well is because every piece of the puzzle is connected, you know. It's not
Yeah.
just you are signing everyone, but you guys are all
Yeah.
part of that whole
It's
group.
such like it's still like an idea. It's there's no like
What is the idea for it?
it changes all the time.
Yeah.
I think the root idea is to kind of nostalgically look at a DIY label from the 70s to 80s.
Sure.
So there was a lot of those back in the day, and I think the closest comparison to that present is the idea of a collective of people that all do something that feeds into one thing that they present to people. I like that idea too, but I don't want it to be limiting. I want it to be a label. So I was kind of like, let's not try get a whole bunch of similar kind of artists on one song. Let's try and get them to release whatever they want to release whenever they want to release it to a platform that we can build through us releasing stuff. So it's just trying to set up a kind of the classic idea of a label and trying to figure out how distribution can work in the 21st century, because we're not trying to sell physicals anymore. We're trying to I don't even know what we're trying
Almost
to do.
sell exposure in a way, eh?
Yeah, we're trying to sell exposure.
Mm.
And I guess it's just building a platform.
Yeah.
And then being able to say to people, I really like what you do. I would love to use my platform to show people what you do and show a form of appreciation.
Yeah, for sure.
In a way. But I don't quite know what the whole like I don't know where the garbage idea is going. I know at the moment that it's just like, let's try and get really good music together. Really good. Like just get some music. Let's do what we can do. Put it out there and then find more people through doing what we like doing that also like doing something similar and just facilitate showing it to people.
Yeah, and the best way for each individual to grow, especially in your case, as a sort of affiliator of everything, is you're going to grow yourself as well. Like, if you're just on your own path the whole time, you have no sort of outside perspective.
I do this and
sharing the love,
connecting and learning. Again, it's like we were saying with 3/4 Marathon. Like, for me, I like to look at it in a way where I can like not get involved creatively or like be too overbearing in someone's situation. I can just kind of try and facilitate a little bit more to that situation through anything that I might know that you might not. You know, like, I don't know what that might be, but I'll just hear something or see something and kind of go, huh, and think, I see this either exactly how it sounds or how it's being perceived, or I see it in a slightly different way, and I try and
see something that could be done with it,
peacefully offer my kind of what I think could be done. I completely don't mind like people's opinion on my opinion. It's like I just kind of see I try and connect dots. It's like fucking number dot, fucking colouring book when you're a child. You're just trying.
Yeah.
Through people I might have met through Jack Berry, or like another thing for garbage is like Wax Mustang's music doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
It's reaching
doing
quite a few people.
Yeah.
Might be in a different kind of realm to whatever I don't know. It's slightly different, but building a platform from us putting stuff out and to figure out how to use that platform for more than just ourselves.
Yeah, right.
In a friendly and organic way.
I suppose there's no limitations as to how many people you sort of have involved.
Not at all.
It. Yeah,
not at all.
It's a label you're going to.
I think like the way that it looks at the moment is it looks like a super tight friend group. That's essentially what it is. But like that's not what intentionally I'm trying to make it or we're trying to make it be. It's just whoever we know, and we're me personally, getting better at getting out there.
Yeah, for
talking to people and trying to help in different ways and
seeing
stuff.
what works. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just like I like what you're doing.
Be a part of it.
If you need any help, let us know.
Yeah. So it's more like you're part of us now. It's like we are here to facilitate what your needs and that sort of thing. Offer a platform.
But not make people feel like they're tied down to a concrete ideal or like just because the graphic and the art looks a certain way, it doesn't mean that like, because perspective is a big thing for artists, I think. As soon as you choose what the photos are going to look like, what the music's going to sound like, and what the video is going to look like, people will have a perspective of it.
Sure.
And like to let artists offer their perspective and their own way, and then have it offered in a different perspective where it's garbage or whatever. It's like we were saying, making more than one poster for something. When you're posting something, it's like you're offering a different perspective onto how this could look for people. And I quite like that idea because it's like opening people's like, because some people will hear or see something and be like, no, don't like it.
Right.
Because of the way it looks maybe, rather than the way it listens. But if you can kind of flip it and give it and make it look like something in a different way, then you might get them to be like, oh, I actually quite like this. You know, there's a song that you hear on the radio or whatever, and then you see the video for it and you're like, nah.
Yeah.
You've ruined it. Like, like I don't like such and such about this whole situation.
Yeah, it's like, interesting when you hear a song that comes out just as audio,
Yeah.
and then you don't see the music video
No
for like a
context.
couple of weeks later, and it's
Yeah.
like, this is not at all how I envisioned the
Yeah,
song.
yeah.
you
And
know?
then you kind of, and then you'll be like, oh, fuck.
It's not so exciting anymore.
Sheesh.
Yeah. But with promoting artists through garbage, you've got this sort of aesthetic or graphic that you're using on those things. So
Yeah.
are you trying to sort of adapt those to artists that you're presenting, or is it purely just you're under garbage, so it needs to be presented
I think
as such?
the way that I look at it is, I've got like the people that are on the label. There's no money in it or anything, but like that, I've kind of made it clear to people, like, ask me if you want posters, ask me if you want any kind of design or whatever. You don't feel obliged to.
Yeah.
But anything that's coming out on the Garbage Records Instagram is just something that I've come up with, and within a few rushed hours. Like, there should be more thought put into it or whatever, but like, quite quickly. But then I want to be able to do it through events and stuff. That's why we've done the Garbage Present stuff. It's like being able to not say that this artist is completely attached and signed or whatever. It's like we can facilitate being able to put on a live show for people and offering posters or whatever in that situation, and design wise or whatever. But it's just not like super authoritative or like anyone that's on the label is just at the moment a friend, and it's all basic necessity within being an artist as well. It's like, who's gonna take your photos, who's gonna make your tour posters and all of that. So it's just like eliminating having to look further and find more people, and just like looking within your own group and getting people to do the, I guess, nitty gritty work.
And you've got to, I suppose, look at it from a business side of things as well. Like, you are creative, running a creative platform, but you can't let your creative bias sort of get in the way of the people that you have on. You've got to be able to facilitate the people in the way that they want to be presented or whatever. Have you come in any? Has there been any struggles in that sense, or is it sort of?
I think it's
really
it's still not a business yet. It still hasn't got to that
like
point.
you say, there's no money involved. It's
Nah, not
purely
at all.
just
And I don't really know when it will
providing
be,
a platform.
and if it will be, because like a record label, a deal, like I don't see much like money in that, but I see it's I don't even think that I'll ever make any money from garbage. It's just kind of like it's like building a presence to be able to like show people things that me or anyone within it has encountered in like a way that we can.
Well, you're sharing the intellectual wealth in a way. You know, you've gotten to a certain point in the city where majority of people know who you are. You're just sort of distributing using the platform that you have to provide.
Well, that's what I want it to
for
be more
others.
now, like, because it does seem deeply rooted in friend group, and it's like just within Dunedin. I don't know what other people think from throughout the country, because it's still so New Zealand and so like I'm not doing anything crazy or whatever. It's just like still pretty low key.
When you started doing shows like in Wellington and Auckland and even Australia, how do you find your music got perceived there? Do you think there is quite an audience for you in those cities?
Yeah, I it all seems quite similar. Like Australia was obviously different because it's a different culture.
Yeah,
but I think that
it's hard to know.
It's hard to know. I don't know.
I mean, there can be a big audience there, but you don't really know how.
After
it's being
playing
perceived.
in like twice a week in Dunedin for a few points there within the first couple of years of Jack Berry, it's a great place to play, and there's people that want it. But like, I don't know, there's something refreshing about going to another place and trying to.
absolutely.
You're playing in front of people you literally don't know.
Yeah.
When you're in Dunedin, you'll see 20 faces that you can. Hey, how you going?
Yeah.
When you're in Wellington, you might have 2 or 3.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So,
And
that way
you're
it's
new
different.
to a lot of those people there as well, you
Yeah.
know, so it's a new experience
Yeah.
for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you end up getting involved with Benny? Where did that come about? Is it sort of a reach out through social media,
just
or had
social
you sort
media,
of run
yeah.
into each other? Yeah.
Yeah, she just I'm relatively sure she might have came to the Huffer show that we played.
Yep.
2018 or something, and maybe enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I want to say, like, I don't know, but
Well, she
and
must
then-
have. I mean, you
Yep.
featured on her track of hers.
Yep,
She
and then
must have
she just
understood something about
messaged
you.
me on Instagram.
Yeah.
Asked if I want to feature on a song that she was trying to figure out. I didn't know if there was anything was gonna happen with
Sure.
it or whatever. And spent like not like as much of time that I should have on it, but like just come up with a verse, send it
Yeah.
back.
Yep.
Surprised to see that they liked it.
Well, you don't want to fuck around when someone like that is
Nah,
hitting you up.
and
for
I
some
could
music.
fuck around. I'm pretty good at just fucking around, but
Yep.
I was like, oh, it's like opportunity and taking it. And
for
I was
sure.
like, all right, this is an opportunity. And I
Yep.
was like,
Have
sweet.
you had anybody hit you up through that specifically, rather than through
I
the
don't
Jet
really
challenge?
know because it's hard to tell because I'm just still at such an infant level that it's like you might get like the odd person that goes.
It might happen in the future though, even
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the crazy thing about those things is like when somebody just blows up like that, is obviously she's blown up. She's blown
Yeah.
up in the sense that you could blow up
Someone
blow up
like her.
as a New Zealander.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's hard to.
And her status
tell.
now, we were speaking before about how she's grown up being on the Jimmy Fallon show. Did you say it was?
Yeah, a couple
Yeah.
of weeks ago she was on Jimmy.
She's
Fallon
obviously got quite a decent level of fame now. People are recognizing her.
Yeah.
So it might be that the more popularity that she grows, say in America,
Yeah.
will end up sort of people tracing back through a discography and come
Yeah.
across you, and it might be a similar
Yeah.
sort of feeling, and you might.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Well,
it's a weird thing how it can work like that. Couldn't
Yeah.
be a couple of years later that someone finds it out about you, and
Yeah.
it's a mix
You-
of
and it's the same
exposures
thing, you
as
know?
well, I guess. It's like there was a magazine that arrived at our flat today, actually called I want to say it's called Yo Vocal,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Yo magazine.
Yeah,
And my
vocal,
flatmate Harry is on the cover of that, and there's a story in him about him in there about shaping boards and stuff like that. And Benny's in that as well. She's on the cover too. And that's the same kind of thing as like, you know, if you blow up like that, you have internal and external exposure like that. That's what really pushes you upwards, is like the fact that you don't get that imposter syndrome where people where you're from will look at you and be like, oh, well, they're aiming specifically for, like some people we know, aiming specifically for commercial success in just one area. If you can hit both of them, that's when you really start like maximizing
Yeah.
just any direction you could go in, you know, like it's, and, you know, I'm not saying that Benny's necessarily comparable to like Lord or anybody like that, but those channels are opened up by people like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's just cool to see New Zealand people kind of like cementing their own place within the big wheel of music or
It's
just
part of-
culture in general, you know?
it's part of what you said before, like,
Yeah.
you know, where it doesn't, everyone's so interconnected that like it doesn't matter about being from New Zealand anymore, you know, like before we're talking about
More
it off
global.
mic and stuff, it's like
Yeah.
you got split ends maybe getting top 40 UK, top 50 the States, like
Yeah.
bands like the Chills, maybe you get in the underground scene, whatever, and that's max. That's where you end, unless you really push through with something really, really forceful, like a How Bizarre by OMC or something like that,
Yeah.
where it's like a mix of all these different sounds, and it doesn't, you know, the amount of people that would know in the United States that song How Bizarre is by a New Zealander would be so low.
Yeah.
It'd be incredibly low. But if you were to ask somebody about Lord, they'd be like, oh yeah, she's from New Zealand. And that's because she's grown up in this era now where it's like, you know.
And
it's
would it have been
supplementary.
that she, Lord, for example, she sort of got into that area a lot quicker? Like she sort of got the American fame a lot quicker than, say, Split Ends were, because Split Ends were more sort of New
I
Zealand.
think
before
I think Splinter's kind of grinded in New Zealand, Australia, and then probably Britain for a long time. I think for ages they were kind of Split Ends / Crowded House were like New Zealand's kind of main export. I think Law just happened to kind of hit those three kind of spots of like that alternative kind of Kate Bush sound that was different to what was going on, the youth,
Yeah.
and the fact that you're from New Zealand isn't it's not massive. I don't think it's a massive part of it, but I think it's a significant enough part of it where there's that hint of exoticism that comes from your music just because you're from there, you know. It's like you could compare it to anything. You could compare it to the direction that like Drake went on that is it Views, that One Dance and stuff like that. So that all borrows from
so.
like dance hall reggae Jamaican sounds, you know what I mean? It's even just adding elements like that can change the perspective of music
for sure.
in itself. And that How Bizarre song, like I just mentioned before, like it's got lots of Latin instrumentals, like the horns, like the that whole thing. So lots of people, I've even seen people talking about it on the internet. They're like, oh, I thought this was by like a Mexican guy. I thought this was a Latin song, something like that, you know?
Yeah.
I just think it's a lot easier to communicate where you're from nowadays than it was before.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, and that probably ties into how Lord is, like, obviously comparing Lord and Split Ends is not a super fair comparison, but I suppose
That's sort of the benchmarks for a generation from New Zealand.
Yeah, for sure. But still, like these days, it would probably be a lot more accessible for Lord to be successful. Like if the roles are switched, say if Lord was popular at the time Split Ends are popular and vice versa, would it have been the same story? You know,
I think I guess it depends because like I compare her to Kate Bush. Kate Bush is really similar. Like I don't know how much you know about Kate Bush, but she's
Not
like
really.
she had a big song called Wuthering Heights that she wrote when she was like 17. She like wrote and had a big part of it. It's got like, or every year around the world they have like a Kate Bush Day where people do the dance from Wuthering Heights and stuff like that. She was kind of like the Lord of the 80s. Do you know what I mean?
Was
So,
she
like,
a New Zealander?
No, she was British, but
right.
like she has a lot of the like kind of alty sort of
Countering the popularness.
Yeah,
of the
exactly.
time.
But being popular because it was counter to it. Like Wuthering Heights has tons of like classical music kind of references, a lot of piano.
It's not like
Right.
it's
Baroque
intentional
music.
either. It just kind of happens at the perfect time where people are ready
interesting.
for something new.
Yeah, right.
Which was like what Lord is in a sense.
So this was
Oh,
that's
okay.
what Kate Bush looks like, obviously.
But yeah, it looks partially familiar.
But I mean, she was a bit of a fox. Look at that one. But yeah, like I'm pretty sure Wuthering Heights was the real big breakthrough song for her. But
I
that's
probably recognise it, but I don't. It doesn't ring any bells for me. But yeah, I could see why.
I just remember because I had a girlfriend that was really into Kate Bush, and super into Wuthering Heights because they have a dance every year around the world, like in the Octagon in Dunedin, they have it as well. I think
Wow.
it might be when this song came out, but it's like there's a dance in this music video where everyone dresses in red and like reenacts it around the world. There's like 40,
Is it kinda
45.
like Gangnam
Jeez.
Style, like 30 years
Basically.
ago.
Yeah, like a flash mob, but like figuring out the song to this. So like you see it there, it's like it's her most successful single.
True.
Pitchfork named it the fifth greatest song of the 1970s.
Whoa.
Wow.
And I'm
probably
pretty
will know
sure.
what it is.
So it was released in 1978, and she was born in 1958, so she would have been 20.
Wow.
Jeez, that's pretty impressive. How old was Lord when she sort of
I think
started
20.
getting?
19, 20.
Similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Like she's,
Think
you
about
know,
She's like 24 at my age. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
that's weird. That's weird. It's so weird to think
feel
about
like
artists that
A
are
lot
younger
of
than you
people,
are doing
young
well.
Lean.
Oh, yeah, he's 23,
24.
24 now.
Probably, yeah. And
Yeah.
then like, for
You listen to
example,
Stars?
yeah, I really enjoyed that
I
album.
quite like that album a
Yeah,
lot.
I was
Yeah.
like, this is the kind of album I'd buy on vinyl.
Oh,
I was
100%.
like, I get what you're doing here.
Aside from his music, I want to buy his vinyl for the sake of having his
Yeah,
vinyl because
yeah.
they just look dope.
Yeah.
The way he
Yeah, look
prints it.
He's something that's, well, an artist that you'll be like in 20 to 30 years, your
Yeah.
children will be like, holy moly.
Yeah,
and the
weird,
way
eh?
that we look at someone from the 70s or 80s.
Yeah, he's a good example. Going back to a conversation about Travis Scott, I feel like he's an artist that has really stayed in the underground.
Yeah,
Like his
yeah.
his style hasn't changed, but
Yeah.
he hasn't grown really
No.
any popularity.
The
He's
only-
just plateaued.
The only things that have changed is just whatever he's interested in and how he chooses to apply it back
Yeah.
to what he makes.
Yeah.
Which is super sick because it's
Crazy.
like you're growing and your art is growing with you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That seems pretty honest.
Yeah, and he's created a whole sort of genre on his own as well.
Yeah.
It's not just the fact that he's got,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like,
it's a whole
it's
dynamic.
pretty trappy and,
Yeah.
and whatever, but like it's 100% Young Lane
Yeah,
or Sad Boys, you know?
yeah. He's one of the guys I like aesthetically love everything about him, and all his music videos are so intricate. And like
Yeah.
one of the latest ones he puts out for one of the Star songs, it was like,
Yeah.
wow, this just fits the whole.
Well, that's like
thing.
Echo 2K
Yeah.
doing the videos too,
Yeah, that's
which is crazy to think about. It's like super collaborative.
I didn't know what to expect when his album came out because I
Yeah.
didn't think I was much of a fan of his in previous songs through
It's like he was
Drank
still
Gang
trying to
and all
work
that.
it out.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
100% he was, because he was sort of, he was in that sort of higher register, and it was
Yeah.
sort of borderline like, oh, this is so bad, it's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
But
yeah.
also like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then he's really defined it now, and he's
Yeah.
probably one of my
Yeah.
favorite artists. That
Yeah.
E album is crazy. I
Yeah.
fucking love that album.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's sick.
It's just you got to give people some time to kind of like
Yeah,
they've got the ideas, but they're not kind of like
Yeah.
putting it all together in a way that's like super polished or whatever at the moment.
yeah, for sure. And when you're part of a group like that as well, I feel that you just are almost, you're just a part of it. You're not necessarily your own thing.
Yeah.
So you're just
Yeah.
part of the group. So
Yeah.
you're just sort of involving yourself where you
Yeah.
can, or you're mainly riding off that one person.
Yeah.
Whereas it takes time
Yeah.
to build a reputation within the group
Yeah.
to decide that then, okay, this is how I'm going to do it my way now that I've got these links.
and
with
having
all these
the
other
like confidence and
producers.
ability to be able to do so
Mm.
as well, because like
Yeah.
there's always in those situations someone that's doing better than the other people, and it's like if I'm to like, it might seem like I'm going up against someone that's like so closely connected in a way, but it's like when you get it to a point where you are showing something pretty individual and something that can stand up by itself, then you don't have to worry about getting in the way of someone else's release.
Yeah, for
plan
sure.
Or,
How do you feel about? I have a perspective on artists that do well and have like a backstory.
yeah,
And I wonder how authentic an art form can be if you don't really have sort of a come up or like something that's happened in your past that sort of affected you creatively. How do you perceive that? Do you think that not necessarily that it's a necessity, but that you typically see more artists, whether it's visual artists or musicians or whatever, doing better because they've, people that have grown up from the streets or homeless
there's
or
that
whatever it is.
romanticized idea of like struggle and stuff, and like it's awesome to see people that have struggled to overcome that and get to a better position than what they were in. But like at the end of the day, I think you'll be surprised to know that people have not met like some of your favorite artists are just normal.
Yeah.
They just come from like middle class backgrounds and all
Well,
of that.
majority
fabricated to
speaking,
make it
it
more
will be
appealing.
people that have that platform. Like it's
Yeah.
not like everyone that does well has come.
It was
from
must have
being
been
homeless
harder
or
in the
whatever.
day back in the day to kind of overcome even more.
Yeah, absolutely.
But these days it's the internet's there, so it's like you have even more power to get your moment or get yourself into the position where you can better yourself. But I don't know, it's interesting to
I think it's more just, again, ties into the aesthetics of the artist, they've come from this place, there's more meaning, or feel, at least you have an interpretation of that there is more meaning in the music because of someone's background, which makes for sometimes, especially if it's sadder music, you sort of go, oh, wow, there's some thought-provoking
obviously
things coming
behind
up in the song rather than just, you've played
harmony.
music your whole life and everything's good and happy and you sign a label and you make good
Yeah,
music.
yeah.
It's like, that's
Yeah.
cool, you're obviously talented, but there's
But
not the
even-
same
Even
gritty
then,
feeling
though,
about it.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive in any way because people that made a lot of positive music had really gnarly
Oh, for sure.
lives.
Yeah, not to say that if you've come from dark backgrounds, you have to make dark music.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though I love that.
there's the kind of like people like the idea, what I feel like they do, of coming from this place of like sadness or it's like you're drawing from somewhere and it's like, do you actually want to have that feeling?
Yeah.
Like you can have that, but you don't have to let it dictate you.
Yeah.
You can kind of like have a moment where you fully feel sad.
Yeah.
And then you can draw from that.
And like you say, there's it's a thing that is romanticized to be sad.
Yeah.
It's almost like an aesthetically
Yeah.
pleasing thing to
Yeah.
make sad music, purposely sad music, because it's relatable to
Yeah,
everyone's sad, or whatever.
Yeah.
But
There's some people that don't have that intention though. They just literally when they open their mouth or when they program beats or
right.
whatever, it just comes out.
yeah,
like,
they just have that general vibe about them.
quite moody
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah,
But
for sure. I watched this documentary the other night, and this just got me thinking because you and I, Damin, were talking about digging up things in the rainforest or what sort of is in the depths of what is underground. And the documentary was about during, I don't know what the time period is, but when Vikings were around, whatever country or whatever time period that was, these, what do you call the scientists that?
Archaeologists.
Archaeologists, thank you, had come across literally a pile of skeletons. I'll get you to pull it up, Liam, because I wrote down the name of
Give me
it.
a name and all.
The Ridgeway Hill Viking Burial Pit.
Wow.
So it's basically just a pile of skeletons that they've dug up, but all the heads had been cut off.
Oh.
So it's literally just the skeleton bodies buried in this one patch. But as they kept digging, they discovered another patch a couple meters away with all the heads buried
What?
in one. Yeah. And it was
Man.
like, Jesus
History's
Christ.
crazy.
This is like a mass decapitation of these people.
Yeah.
It's fucking gnarly. I'm sure there'd be some photos of it somewhere, but I just remember thinking, fuck, like imagine coming across that and trying to like come up with the story to that as well, because you have
yeah.
no.
So is
you
it
got no
explanations of the executions. The dead men were all of fighting age and were killed a long way from home. Several theories have been advanced for how they ended up at Ridgeway Hill. At the time of their deaths, England was a scene of conflict between native Saxons and invading Vikings. It's suggested that the men have been Saxons killed by Vikings or by other Saxons, but this was disproved by the evidence of their Scandinavian origins. The site of the burial is thought to have been a formal spot, and it is possible the execution may have taken place in front of an audience.
Yeah, it's fucking gnarly, man.
What?
And they had made, in the documentary, they had made they literally acted out a whole scene
Yeah.
of the storyline or why these people would have done this thing. It was pretty corny, but it was like,
Jesus,
you really have no idea what has happened there. There's nowhere written down about,
No.
yeah, fuck.
It's savage.
It's fucking gnarly. They've literally just had these people probably queue up and they've just gone, right,
Pretty amazing.
your turn.
Imagine running into that. You're an archaeologist. You're like,
That
maybe
was
I'll
my
find,
point, yeah.
maybe I'll find
Interesting.
one femur bone
Yeah.
in 10 years of work.
Maybe
and
we'll
just find a
discover some
whole
new
pit
pieces.
of corpses.
No, that's a pile of heads. Yeah, it
Right.
looks pretty savage.
I'd be surprised, man.
It's weird to think that there was once a time and place where that was just acceptable amongst
People just neglect what has happened.
Yeah.
I feel in a way, like we're so routinely caught up in today that like everything that we do today is based on something that's happened in the past.
Yeah.
and it's like
I think events like this happened before the concept of a collective, of like humanity as a collective even existed though. You know, there was no thought of judgment when they were doing things like this because they're like, we are the judgment.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
there's no collective identity to look back on us as a civilization and say what they did was barbaric. It's like we're the ones ruling here. We're deciding. That's how
Yeah.
they get to the
Exactly.
point where they can
It's
execute
always
whoever
like
they want.
a war, I feel like, in those times. There's always someone
Yeah.
trying to rule over someone
That's
else,
pretty
and it's
metal.
always just, Jesus, yeah.
it's like forms of like patriotism.
Yeah.
It's like from where you're from and kind of like enforcing that you support where you're from even more
Yeah.
by like fighting for it. Or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And
And
that-
that'd be a huge part of it.
That could have
just
been
showing
slightly alternative back in the
Yeah,
day. If you
yeah,
like,
right.
fucking, who knows the
And like
context to those
people that
situations.
used to like go to people being hanged, like
Yeah.
people would be sentenced to be hanged, and
Yeah.
there'd just be crowds of people
Yeah,
watching it. It's
right.
like,
And,
oh,
like,
they're going to
fist
kill this
pumping.
dude. Imagine that. Imagine
Yeah.
going
If
into
you had-
town and watching a
Yeah.
hanging.
If you had to guess, when do you think the last public guillotining was?
I feel like you've told me this before. It wasn't that long
Was
ago. Wasn't it like
20th century?
1800s? 1900s?
More recently than that, yeah.
Really?
The guy that played Saruman in
Yeah, Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings and,
Yeah.
and Count Dooku and Star Wars, Christopher Lee, he was at the last public guillotining. It was in
Jesus
1959.
Shit.
Okay. That it's still, yeah, wow, okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Do they still?
I was hoping it wasn't any earlier than
I
like
reckon
the
guillotine
80s.
would be a right to go out, to be honest.
Oh, it'd be
I
short and
almost
sweet.
think I'd rather be guillotined
Short
than
and
electric
sweet.
cheered.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I mean,
are they still electric cheering?
that
Maybe.
there was a more recent case of electric cheering, I think.
That's crazy.
Okay,
yeah,
it was
that's-
1939, not 1959.
No, you suck. No, I think, it's gory as it is. Having a guillotine would be, it's short and sweet. Whereas
Yeah.
being an electric
Yeah.
chair, you're literally feeling yourself dying. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty torturous.
Yeah.
Unknown to authorities, film of the execution was shot from a private apartment adjacent to the prison. British actor Christopher Lee, then 17 years old, also witnessed the event. He would later go on to play headsman Charles Henri Sanson in a 1989 French TV drama about the French Revolution, which his character made prolific use of the device.
Bloody hell.
Something he's seen once. with
Where was it
during his
again?
life.
Sorry?
Is in Paris.
Paris, yeah.
I reckon that's
God.
actually quite humane to get guillotined, to be honest. Like, if you have to be executed, like if you're going to like, if they're going to be like, we're definitely going to kill you,
But you could eject someone with the poison.
yeah, you could.
That's true.
You could.
Well, I
But
don't know
then
if they had those means in the 1930s.
Those-
There would have been something.
those lethal injections are gnarly, bro. They remove your like
Getting your
motor
head cut off's pretty
No,
gnarly.
but at least it's like bam, you're out. Like when
Yeah.
you get like
I suppose
executed
it's
by
where you
lethal
gotta wait
injection,
to die.
they
yeah.
inject you and you're still conscious. You just can't move any of your appendages, bro.
Yeah. Is that what it does? It
Yeah,
freezes
the
you
first
up.
hit that they give you like disables your like motor neural system, so you're just basically vacant and just witnessing your execution. It's
Bloody
pretty
hell.
savage.
Yeah, that is savage. Fuck. No, it's hard picking a way that you think you'd like to die,
Yeah,
at least these days.
when you sleep or something. surely.
yeah.
I don't know.
Very
Something
nice.
peaceful.
There's I haven't formed an opinion around. There's another referendum.
End of life,
Yeah,
part of the election. Yeah.
euthanasia.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting concept.
I'm big on like choice.
So am I.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty
100%
pro
voting.
like,
Yes.
but then there's the lines being blurred of like, do they have the capacity to think for themselves in this situation?
Yeah,
Or whatever. But I just like being able to make up your own mind. That sounds fair.
for sure.
I've been there with people on their deathbed at the end stages of cancer, and it's not.
Yeah,
You're not there.
in that-
You're not there.
yeah.
You're really not there for the end of
Yeah.
your own life. Like
Yeah.
it's
In that case, yes, it makes sense. If you have a terminal illness that you're literally just waiting it out for,
well, that's
you
the
know
only
you're gonna be-
condition under this new.
Okay.
That's the only condition. You can't go
Can't
to a
just
doctor.
walk somewhere
No.
and be like, all right, let's go.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
of
can't go to a
course.
doctor and
Wouldn't
say
expect that.
I have terrible depression. I want to end my life.
Yeah.
They won't sign off on
You
it.
need to be offered something more to that situation
Yeah.
than
Mm.
the be and end all of ending life.
I think you have to prove, from what I read from the pamphlet that I got in the mail recently anyway, you have to prove that you're in the 6-month end stage of a terminal illness. You can't
Right.
you can't just say, I've been diagnosed with a stage 3 cancer, it might get quite heavy, I want to end it here.
Yeah,
You have to actually be at the stage where a diagnosis has been made that you're not going to live further than this
well,
time
that clears
point.
it up a bit because all I'd heard was that it was just something that was perhaps going to be introduced. Obviously,
you
it's a
could flick your
referendum, but-
switch whenever, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
well,
I think
not that I thought
Switzerland-
that was going to be an option, but it was like that was my thought. It was like surely
Yeah.
there's going to be something in place to prevent that from happening. Because if anyone can just go to a doctor and say, "I want to be euthanized,"
No, it wouldn't
Yeah.
be
that
way.
just ties into the whole. Felix, my flatmate, made a good point about this. Is it
Yeah.
ties into the whole suicide rates
Yeah.
that we have in the country?
Yeah,
If people
yeah.
just think it's okay if people go and kill themselves,
Yeah.
then that just becomes an option for these people,
Yeah.
and it would be immensely
No, I
detrimental.
don't think it'd ever be that liberal. I don't even think now. I think in Switzerland I think Switzerland might be one of the few. There's less than 10, I'm pretty sure. But I think Switzerland was one of the first countries. They're like, yeah, you can come in for clinical. If you, I don't know if you have to pay a lot of money. You probably do at Switzerland. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. It would never be a case of you just being able to walk into the doctor and say, man,
Of
life's
course.
pretty shit at the moment.
Yeah.
I might just end it
Yeah,
here.
because
They'd
that's
be
like,
like a
well,
whole other
appointment.
thing.
Well, exactly. And that in itself, if you think of it purely from like an economic if you think of the mental health system or the health system in general as being run on money, it would be completely pointless to execute a person who doesn't need to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that would
Yeah.
be a waste of their resource and also just a waste of. I don't think anybody is quite that. I think that's the funny thing is people think that that's a really liberal. You know what I mean? Like where you could just choose to end your own life and people are like, yep, sweet, let's end it here. But I don't think that would ever be an eventuality. I couldn't imagine a scenario where anybody who was a doctor would legitimately just be like, oh yeah, somebody's come in and they're struggling with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, yada yada. We'll just put them down because
Yes, for sure.
that's
Yeah.
where it slips into eugenics and that's where it becomes like a Nazi argument.
Yeah,
more than
for
anything
sure.
else.
Yeah. Bloody
Yeah.
hell. Well, look, boys, that's coming up 2 hours. I think we've
Sheesh.
done very well
We've
here.
been talking for a while.
Damon, is there anything coming up for you in terms of garbage or Jackberry that you want to tell everyone about?
3/4 marathon tour,
Cool.
August.
Where are you heading?
We're going Wellington, Queenstown, and Dunedin, 20th, 28th, 29th. Wax Mustang's on tour. You've probably seen that. Jack Berry's going to do 2 shows at the end of September in the North Island.
Sick.
And other than that, just trying to make music and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
100%. Cool. Well, I'll definitely be
If
at those
you're
Dunedin
interested.
shows. Yeah. Oh, I'm
Check
sure
it out.
people listening will
And
be
if you're not,
here
get
exactly for that. Sweet. All right, boys, let's bring this to a close, eh?
Yep.
Thanks for coming on, Damon.
Thank
Really
you,
appreciate
Kieran. Thank you, Liam.
Thanks again,
Yeah.
Liam. Always a pleasure. Bye, everyone.
Beautiful.
Chin chin.
Home audio entertainment.
9016 Radio.
The show for artists of all kinds.
Sit down, relax, enjoy the music.